Hey, fellow humans, welcome to Unraveling the Shoulds. You know all of those stories in our minds that are built upon who we thought we should be? Well, we're going to unravel those. We're going to journey into the quiet magic of everyday life. Those moments where each small thought holds a thread that can unravel the story of who we thought we were. As those threads fall away, what emerges is our mountaintop self. The true soul of us that is vast and free and whole. Through myth, philosophy, and lived experience, we'll discuss and walk this path together, unraveling into the truth, remembering who we've always been. How about we finally stop shoulding all over ourselves?
Hello, Christine.
Hello, sweet Madison. A lot to unpack today.
Now, the question is, where do we begin?
Isn't that always the question? Where do we begin? Especially when we're talking about shoulds, unraveling from those, mountaintop selves.
How about where could we begin?
Where could we begin? This week, in our lead up to our chat, we've been talking about life decisions. It seems kind of like a big topic of conversation for many of my clients. Many of the conversations I've been having lately are kind of this subject or idea of a crossroads or a decision point or a place where people are finding themselves ready, needing, wanting to make a decision about something. And I think there's a lot of shoulds and a lot of shouldn'ts that run in the background when we're faced with making decisions about our lives.
I definitely would agree with that. As someone who just made a decision, but what I would also say is that something that I learned in the process of making this decision was regarding gut feelings and intuition.
And that's a great jumping off point.
Great jumping off point, because I think when we make a decision, sometimes it's true, you do have to line things up, look at things, map it out, look at your options, look at the different route possibilities, and then make a decision. And then there's other times when it feels like, in some ways, the decision is already made for you, where it just is. There's no I'm going to make a decision. It's like, oh, the decision is made, and in fact, it's going to let me know if I'm going against that decision, that gut feeling.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great place to begin, because there's two conversations to be had there. And it depends on where you are in your own journey, how you identify intuition, whether you're listening to that intuition. So there's lots of different pathways that you could go off of based on just off that one jumping off point of, I need to make a decision. The decision's already been made. Those are two very different statements. And I think in both cases, the decision's already been made. It's just whether or not your antenna, intuition, or authenticity has enabled you or qualified you to feel that decision already being made. When you feel like you get mentally stuck in weighing all the things, when the decision ultimately has already been made, a lot of times we just have to anchor into trust, and that's easier said than done. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it asks us, what is intuition? It's kind of beautiful timing. I was just listening to a talk by Ram Dass, and he was saying, as somebody who was very clinical and processed the world very clinically and practically, it was a joke in the 70s that intuition was just something that women had. It's just like, oh, well, that's just something that women have or women can do or moms can do. And through his stillness, silence, introspection, and growth, obviously, he realized that those decisions, quote unquote, I love how you said that, the decision's already been made. Um, the intuition helps you to be able to listen to that, and that's now obviously beyond gender.
Yeah, obviously beyond gender. Yeah, but there is something, I almost said there is something feminine about it in
Well,
nature, which is
yes.
beyond gender, but I mean that the qualities that I've experienced intuition to be is that this has taken me a long time of exploring, but is still even something that I don't think you ever stop exploring. Like, what is my intuition? What does that mean? Does my intuitive gauge change, or is it just my connection to it that changes? All of that aside, what I've experienced in like defining what intuition means for me is that it is something, again, that's not like a concrete, logical XYZ makes sense. It's a lot more watery.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I was chatting with a friend last night that water, not only does it flow around obstacles, it's a strong force, it has a lot of power, it's very soft as well, it just kind of floats by, it's very adaptable, but it can also be put into a container and then it fills that container and becomes a shape. So it does take form. It's not completely formless, even though, well, it is formless, but it
Mhm.
takes form. And so in that way, I definitely equate it as being, I think, more feminine just because of that kind of watery, adaptable nature. And maybe the intuitive layer of it I'm feeling into mostly is like the depth of, let's say, the ocean, where
Mhm.
it just goes so deep. There's like a depth of darkness there
Mhm.
where maybe you go down into the depths, into the darkness, and then you're kind of feeling around and you're like, okay, what's the intuitive sense down here? You're relying less on, is that a shark? And relying more on, like, yes, yes, it is. Like,
And
um,
the fundamental aspect of the healed feminine, the fundamental aspect of the healed feminine is trust. That's exactly what you're just saying. I trust it down here. The darkness is the healed feminine, the introspection, the trust, and the wounded feminine would be irrational or dramatic, right? And that's why with intuition, we always want to remember that intuition is not emotional. Emotions can lead to irrational and dramatic, right? And the healed masculine creates safety, and the wounded masculine creates or perpetuates aggression. So intuition truly is deeply feminine, not gender specific, but feminine in its nature, that it is trust itself rising to tell you the decision has already been made. Trust this, be able to tap into that higher consciousness that already made the decision. The resistance is going to be dramatic. The resistance is going to be irrational. And so if you tend towards a wounded feminine nature, you can get lost in the dramatized feeling of emotions and say things like, yeah, my intuition just told me that that person's not a good person. It's like, well, your intuition's not really about someone else. Your intuition belongs to you. So your intuition might be telling you, I don't know that my needs and what it is that feels protected in me is secure around this energy. But that's all about you, your needs, and your trust, rather than telling me that your intuition told me about someone else. Does that make sense? Yeah. So when you say, I trust my intuition, it belongs to me, then you don't say, I knew it intuitively that this environment was going to be toxic. Intuition would pause, assess the environment, and walk away, because you know that it's not for you. But it's all about you. It's not about the environment. It's not about the other person. It belongs to you. And that's very trusting. And that is that dark space where you're not wondering, is that a shark, or is that a this, and how do I protect, and what do I have to do? That's all very much practical in mind and in nature. And we need that too, right? We need that if we're camping and hear a noise in the wilderness. But when it comes to that mountaintop self, and when it comes to our trusting that the arc of our entire life was already decided before we even landed in this body, now we can start tapping into intuition. And it is the communication between your gut and your brain. Or I'd say your gut and your mind, because your brain and your mind are different. Yeah. So when it comes to those decisions that we have to make, that could be, should I leave this job? Am I still in love? Do I want to stay in this relationship? You know, these are big decisions. A lot of people are finding themselves at that crossroads in the arc of their lives, because I believe we are finding ourselves at that crossroads collectively as well. We're starting to see this collective crossroads, and we go, oh, I'm kind of going through my own personal crossroads as well. You tend to that. That's your participation in the outside world.
Where to jump off from there?
Well, I guess it's asking, where do I jump when I feel I'm at the crossroads, and how can I make those decisions? We start by talking about intuition. If we know that intuition isn't emotional, you listening to this call right now probably have an idea of whether or not you do listen to your intuition, or you have a hard time even understanding what that means, right? So let's say I consider myself to be an intuitive person. My intuition is always coming as a echo from my highest consciousness. It's already sending a message from my mountaintop self. So if you're saying the decision has already been made, your intuition isn't making a decision to hurt you, right? Your decision or your intuition is guiding you in a way that's already geared towards that highest mountaintop self. Now, when the brain gets involved, it says, well, I don't know who I am beyond this job. I mean, I'd love to have that other position that pays me more money and gives me more financial freedom. But I mean, I only know this version of me. I don't know that version of me. So when your intuition is telling you to make that jump, your ego is pulling you back off the mountaintop and going, oh, you're probably going to fail at that. You're not going to do it very well. What if somebody, gives you all the what ifs and all of the shoulds to pull you back off of that mountaintop, even when your intuition is gnawing at you to make that leap. Your intuition basically says, you know. And the ego goes, oh no, I need to do all of the work. Is it a shark? Is it a hammerhead? How do I get out of here? What do I have to do?
Yeah.
So I think if you were to ask yourself, if I trusted fully and completely in myself, what would I do? Often, like I say a lot, is that I do not think that we are really afraid to fail. I think we know how to keep the status quo. And when something presents itself that could suggest we could stand higher into our mountaintop self, we get terrified. I don't know her. I don't know myself fully arrived in my own truth and saying how I feel and asking for what I need. And, I've never done that before. And that's when the ego starts to pull you down the mountain.
I do really like this idea of the mountaintop self. Another frame of reference or self-inquiry track that I've been really resonating with a lot recently has been from an old mystic from the 17th century. And are you familiar with Teresa of Avila?
No. I mean, I've seen the name, I've seen like
Okay.
quotes, right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
She's a woman who, in her 40s, started to have a huge spiritual awakening. And she's definitely like a Catholic Christian figure, which, of course,
Mm-hmm.
with my background, I think helps to just kind of reframe and restructure some of the things that were very present in my life when I was a child and then growing up. With like my integration, I find it really difficult to just throw all of that away and be like, no, everything that I learned was is no longer useful for me and I don't agree with it anymore. Something tells me that for my individuation and integration process, it really is going to require like threading some of that into my life in a more resonating way. So anyway, she basically she removes all of this religious language and boils it down to what I think you and I and anyone who is okay with using various languages to describe the same thing. Basically, what she describes is she calls it the interior castle.
Mm.
And I really like both of these, the mountaintop and the interior castle, because the interior castle requires that you go through, she calls them like the 7 rooms, which I also find like, oh, the chakras, that's mirrors an existing structure. And so she goes through and explains each of the rooms. And basically, when you get to the 7th room, that's the room of union between you and God. And God being the mystery. I think the difference between the mountaintop self and the interior self is that, and maybe one of the reasons that I do feel more comfortable, I think, exploring the inner world is because I think there's something about the mountaintop that's very seen. In the interior, it's like, okay, it's just me and my experience and my stillness and my union. That feels like a very safe space, especially in making decisions. It's like thinking of the deep waters and the interior castle. It's like you're kind of just settling into it. Whereas the mountaintop, I think, requires fierceness or like.
Well, I think the mountaintop requires action, fierceness, presence. It's like the laboratory and then the product that, it's like you're in the laboratory and you're like the little mad scientist in there and you're pulling in all of these aspects. And then there's a moment of like the reveal. And, some people would rather, or many of us, there's a comfort in the lab. There's a comfort in that inner world. And that says, well, I've gotten to a place where I feel really good with me here. And it's like, that's the moment, bring it to the world. And that's when we can pull back. That's when we can feel shy. That's when we cannot make the decision. That's when we can stay in the job or stay in the toxic relationship. Because sometimes, not that the inner castle is a bad place, but it doesn't, we're always moving. We always need that movement and that change. And so it says, now that I've gotten to a place where I understand myself fully, to bring meaning to it is really to share it. I think meaning in life is dependent on the shared experience.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, writing books for your own knowledge and staying in the inner castle just so you go like, yes, and I figured it all out and it's all mine.
Well,
and it's super safe. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and that actually reminds me a bit of what you were talking about earlier, not in this conversation, but around ahimsa and the requirement of stillness in order to be that in the world. So I guess to me, it feels like if you have the mountaintop self, there also has to be that like rootedness as well. Yeah, like in order to be intuitive outward, you need to be intuitive inward.
Yes. And that becomes the lens of our personality, right? The lens of my personality would say, I trust myself on the mountaintop. Okay. But there was no inner world. So I would just, if I just trust myself out here being seen, but there's no inner world, then I'm constantly looking for my outside environment to guide me. I'm not really guided by anything intuitive, intrinsically me, authentic. I'm just looking at the room and going, got it, got it, got it, got it. And I trust that. Without the inner dialogue, I got lost out there.
Mm-hmm.
Then for other people that have the personality that feel more internal, they can get to that place where the inner castle gets really well known. And it's the moment that you go, oh, okay, now allow yourself to be seen, that you go, oh, wait. So my hesitation was going in. Your hesitation might be coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
stillness can get both of us, you up, me in.
Mm-hmm.
That's where stillness, that's the common thread, is that be quiet and understand why I only feel safe in a crowd full of people.
Mm-hmm.
And get quiet so that you understand, why do I only feel safe when I'm alone? That's the inner work.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can share ourselves with the world, our true authentic selves. And then we can use the outside experience to talk to our intuition, because it's going to be the people, places, and experiences out here that bring you to the next stage of your life. So if you're listening to your intuition from your inner knowing, and you're using the outside world as the canvas or the platform to pull your authenticity into experience, that's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it staying inside, and you can't do it hiding outside.
Just to bring some concreteness to what we're talking about, do you have anything you want to share? Just kidding.
Yes. If we were to bring some concreteness to this and to actually have a tool, okay, it would say, Madison, what are some qualities that are there on the mountaintop? So imagine that you got up really early and you packed your backpack and you put on your hiking boots, and you knew that this trek was going to be hard. You had already read about it, and you get there, there's no one there, and it's like a good 7-10 miles, and it's hard, and there's parts where you thought you were going to turn back and you didn't, and you made it up to the top, and you're standing there and there's no one around, and you're just looking over the most beautiful and expansive landscape you've ever seen, and you're there because you got yourself there. And in this moment, you feel the most authentic, the most you, the most Madison you've ever felt. And in this moment, you can articulate the qualities that make up your highest self. What qualities are there in your highest self?
I wasn't expecting you to ask me that.
So I've done this So when we're talking about our mountaintop self, we have to define the qualities that are there. And that is very unique. I couldn't say like, oh, you know what your mountaintop qualities are, Madison, right? But I can certainly tell you mine. I am confident. I am honest. I am free. And I belong here. I'm confident. I'm honest. I'm free. And I belong here. These are qualities that are present when I feel the most me. So when you talk about a mountaintop self, you have to know what it is that you're even looking for, the signs of your intuition to get you to. So I'm working now with my intuition, and I'm saying, I am ready for the people, places, and experiences in my life that show me that I am worthy and capable of walking my life with confidence and honesty, freedom and belonging. Now I have a roadmap. And the only way for me to be confident is to recognize the vibration of insecurity. The only way for me to be and walk honestly is to recognize when I'm not doing that, when I'm judging, when I'm comparing. The only way for me to walk towards my abundant, highest mountaintop quality of freedom is to recognize if I have an inner bully pulling me away from that freedom. That would sound a lot like, excuse me, that would sound a lot like a should. If I'm running over shoulds and shouldn'ts in my mind, I'm not listening to my intuition because my intuition is fully free. And if I feel like I am pretending or chameleoning or sacrificing, then I don't belong. So we can only find our mountaintop self by recognizing when we're stumbling through our patterns. Do you think I've ever felt insecure, dishonest, blocked, and like I don't belong?
No.
Never. Those have been major roadblocks throughout my whole entire life.
Do you have a recent mountaintop, intuitive decision making, tapping into what does that look like for you most recently?
We navigate these in small ways every day, but when there are big decisions that need to be made because the decision has already been made, there's this pull, there's this call, there's this feeling that says, my day-to-day life isn't meeting these highest qualities. And for me, a big one is me in the definition of a studio owner, of having a brick and mortar location that I love having, but that far exceeds what is necessary or needed for me in my intuitive, authentic give in the world. And it's become a lot. And I know that the decision has already been made. And having the healed feminine trust in that decision is helping me to navigate it in a much more powerful way with a lot less fear and a lot more trust and a lot less control. This decision to be open to unraveling away from big business ownership has already been made. And now I'm just following my intuition.
Okay, well, I obviously already know all of that based on the many conversations that we've had. So I feel very lucky that I've been able to be like part of that conversation with you and see like the flashes of like, huh, and how you have said a lot of times when the exclamation point or the period becomes a question mark, that's really when transformation kind of always makes its way in. And so, yeah, obviously last year there was a question mark of like, do I even want this anymore? And I was like, I don't know, do you? And then that just kind of, yeah, it began to become more and more obvious to you. Like you were either walking towards it in these like little step-by-steps where you're like, is that what I'm seeing? I don't know. And then you start to see it and it's like, you begin to get a clearer understanding of, oh yeah, it says, I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, within the structure of the healed masculine, which is the product, the creating safety, and the doing for other people, that created a illumination on my wounded feminine, which was causing me to feel dramatic and irrational in all of my judgments, and really only feeling worthy when the people I was working with were, we'll say, succeeding or calling me mama bear or loving me. And so it became, in a strange spiritual sense, transactional. And it highlighted something that we'll talk about in our next conversation, which is subconscious non-physical addictions. And I'm working through sobering the subconscious non-physical addiction of believing I am only worthy when I'm saving someone else. So hopefully next time we can chat about the nature of non-physical subconscious addiction.
Thank you so much for joining us in the initial conversations that became the foundation for unraveling the shoulds. We invite you to continue this journey along with us each week as we dive deeper into our truest selves.